We are following breaking news. Sources tell CNN that President-elect Donald Trump has asked Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo to be CIA director. A source also telling us that U.S. Senator Jeff Sessions has been offered the post of Attorney General. Joining us now to talk about this, as well as how the country is dealing with the aftermath of this divisive campaign, we have an incredible panel. We have CNN political commentators Anna Navarro and Charles Blow. Also with us is J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and culture in crisis. Great to have all of you guys. Let's start with the breaking news. So, Anna, we know that Senator Jeff Sessions, Attorney General. Your thoughts?
Well, it looks like it's shaping up to be a very diverse cabinet so far.
Different white men of different ages, or no, all the same?
Different sections of the country. Sure. Listen. Jeff Sessions is a man who I think showed great loyalty to Donald Trump, was one of his first, maybe his first endorser in the Senate. I think that what you've seen in the appointment so far is that he is rewarding loyalty, that it is something that is of great importance to him. With Michael Flynn, with Jeff Sessions, with Congressman Pompeo, they're also very hard-line people. They have, I think, they share the same kind of things that Donald Trump said during the campaign. And we were waiting to see whether Donald Trump was going to moderate. What we are seeing from his early picks, whether it be Steve Bannon, whether it be General Flynn, whether it be Jeff Sessions, is that no, he is not moderating. Jeff Sessions was considered too racist, too controversial in the 80s to be confirmed for a federal judgeship.
That was a while ago. He's been I mean, what we've just heard is that he's been a senator.
I'm not sure there's a statute of limitation for racism.
Charles, Jeff Sessions, Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, these are people who worked for Donald Trump a lot during the campaign, obviously share his worldview. So whether you agree with it or not, why would it be surprising that he would surround himself with people who share his worldview?
I don't say it's surprising at all. I'm not surprised. And at this point, I think it's safe to say that I'm not surprised by anything. But I'm not surprised by this pick either. I'm disturbed by it, however. I mean, it is one thing to say it's the 80s, that somebody said something a long time ago that was controversial, but you have to say that you grew from it, you repented of it. Neither Trump has not done that, Sessions has not done that. I have to see that you are changing and growing. I hope that I am changing and growing, and I hope that if I do something wrong, and that if I say something offensive, that I come back and say, that part of me, I should not have done or said that thing. That's not what these guys are. That's not who Bannon is. That's not who Sessions is. That's not who Donald Trump is. And that should worry a lot of people. A lot of people's only kind of interaction with the Department of Justice in recent years has been around these cases of Black Lives Matter, when the Department of Justice has had to come in and take a look at these cases of unarmed black men being killed by police officers, and whether or not those had violated the civil rights of those people. Yeah. In fact, we just saw they were monitoring the case of Castile, and there's a charge in that case. What kind of Department of Justice are you now going to see? And what actions will they take if Sessions is the guy who's in charge? I don't know the answer to that. It does not bode well for that.
JD, your whole book, Hillbilly Elegy, is about the swath of sort of the forgotten people, poor whites, who, played a big role in this, or working class whites, in this election. Are these things that they are concerned about, or is it just all about God, bring me a job back?
Yeah, I don't think people are going to be concerned about this back home, partially just because people don't pay that much attention to the day-to-day of politics. I think what Trump will be judged on by the folks that voted for him, who I know, is whether things start to get a little bit better over the next few years.
Economically.
And ultimately that doesn't depend on whether Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General, at least for them. I think that it does show that we've got to be a little bit empathetic, though, to the concerns of other voters, right? So Charles Blow mentioned a very significant concern that exists among the black community. I happen to think Donald Trump should be given some deference because he won the election, but we also have to be careful to recognize that there are reasons that other people are concerned.
It's so interesting. You listed some of the things that don't matter to certain Trump voters, and what Charles was talking about there, and what Anna was talking about, was the fact that Jeff Sessions wasn't confirmed in the Senate because he had said things that people thought were racist. That doesn't matter, you say, to a large number of voters. To other voters, it's the only thing that matters. And we saw this with some of the things that Donald Trump said during the campaign, or came out during the campaign, the Access Hollywood tape. For a lot of voters, and I guess primarily it's on the coasts, you know, in California and on the East Coast, those comments were the only thing that matters, and they couldn't get beyond that. So how do you reconcile that fact that for some people it's everything and for others it's nothing?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter. A lot of these comments definitely bothered a lot of the people that I know who voted for Donald Trump. They just said there were other things that ultimately mattered more. So how do you reconcile? I think ultimately depends on the president-elect. And we haven't gotten fantastic signs so far that he's ready to sort of reconcile these two sides of the country. But I'm still hopeful because, as Anna said, so far he's rewarded the loyalists who really supported him. But that list is getting shorter by the day. And unless he wants to appoint Ivanka Secretary of Defense, he's got to start expanding beyond the circle.
He may. She sat in with the president of Japan, the prime minister of Japan yesterday, so he really may.
But in terms of the divisions that this election laid bare, Anna, how do you explain where we are as a country? Are we most divided by race? Are we most divided by money in terms of socioeconomic class, geography, as J.D. Vance spells out so well in his book? How do you see where we are?
You know, I think we are, as humans, a product of who we are plus our circumstances, plus our experiences. I think we are divided by experiences and circumstances, and that means racial division, that means economic division, that means social division, that means geographic division. It is not just one thing. And if you would ask me to name one silver lining to Donald Trump's presidency, and God knows I'm hard-pressed to find one, I would tell you that it's precisely what you just articulated. This election has laid bare. We cannot pretend not to see. We cannot continue sweeping under the carpet the racial, the divisive, social, ethnic, national, economic divisions that are out there in America. We're right now at a fork in the road. They are there. We cannot deny them. We either address them or they continue to grow larger.
You know, one of the things that people like to say to make us all feel good is that there's more that binds us than divides us, Charles. You know, as you sit here and look at it, is that the case? If you look at some, you know, the voters in Los Angeles, who in California actually voted more for Hillary Clinton than it did for Barack Obama. They increased the Democratic vote total in California, even as in other parts of this country, huge swings toward Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, there are some things that are about us that bind us together, but some people are voting for their lives, literally, right? If you are an immigrant in this country, you're voting for your life. If you look at this pick of Bannon and you look at Sessions and you look at what that could mean in terms of the Attorney General and the AG's office, that's about your life. That's not really about, you know, an ideological difference. This is about whether or not I am going to feel safe in my country, in my community, in my skin. It's about, I'm literally, this is not like an argument to have. I don't sit here and feel like, you know, I'm just having some sort of intellectual exercise. I'm talking about the fact that I have 3 kids walking around this planet, walking around this country. This is about my life. And for me, there is nothing bigger than having a place, being able to lay down at night and feel like they are at home in their own country or not. And I'm increasingly of the mind that maybe they are alien to this administration and this country because of the kind of the attitudes that the people in that administration may have, or that they may be turning a blind eye to people who have even worse attitudes, or coddling people who have even worse attitudes. So it's not an intellectual exercise for me. I don't have the luxury of it being an intellectual exercise.
Can't J.D. Vance's relatives in Kentucky also say it's about their life? I mean, if you are poverty-stricken and it's about jobs, they would call it, but that's about their life too. Yeah,
right. So you have the layer of race being about all of those things. Like there's no way to separate out the pressure, the economic pressures on your life than the physical imminent dangers to
I get it. It's just how you define life and what you think is the top priority. I mean, what do your relatives and everybody you know from that Appalachian region think this was all about?
Well, they think it's about a lot of things, and of course a lot of people voted for Trump for very complex reasons. But one thing that I always try to bring up is that if you look at the juxtaposition of the map of counties that were most afflicted by this opioid crisis versus counties that flipped to Donald Trump, it's really striking how the opioid crisis seems to have predicted support for Donald Trump. So I do think there's a real sense of crisis. It's not the same sense of crisis that Charles is talking about, but there's a real divide. And I think a failure, frankly, from my folks to recognize why people like Charles are so worried, but also a lot of folks on the left, a failure to recognize why so many people were so motivated to vote for Trump because they felt very afraid for the
I think
future.
in either side I can see it. There's a lack of empathy in some ways on both sides, but it's not new, right? I mean, Sarah Palin in 2008, I can't remember where she was, but she got to a campaign stop and said, it's good to be in the American part of America, right? It wasn't Harlem, I know that much.
I don't think it was Miami.
And it wasn't Miami that much, but you know, Anna, do both sides see it like that? Do both sides see only their America?
Look, I think it's become very easy in America to be socially and politically isolated. We can now live in a world where we can listen to things that we agree with, only watch things that we agree with, only hang out with people that look like us and that we agree with. So it's become easier to be isolated, to live in a cocoon of the same type of thoughts, same type of experiences, same type of life that we have. And unfortunately, I think there are politicians on both sides of the aisle who have exploited that division, who have made it a wedge issue for electoral purposes. And I think we see it on both sides. I wouldn't say it's just a Donald Trump or liberal Democrats that are, culprits of it. I think it goes both ways. I do want to say that I suspect today there's a lot of immigrants, a lot of Latinos who are very afraid of this Jeff Sessions appointment. He has been a brick wall against, no pun intended, against immigration reform. He is very harsh on immigration, and at DOJ, as Attorney General, he's going to have a great deal of jurisdiction on issues affecting immigration and also affecting things like justice reform and prison sentencing reform, which he's also been an obstacle to.
Thanks so much for this discussion. I think it's an important one to have, and I think the only thing that's going to help heal this is leadership on all sides, which we're counting on.
But John, we as individuals have to take responsibility too.